One of the things I used to do a lot when I led the database management team for one of the big four accounting firms was we would do a lot of experimentation to determine what was the best, maybe hardware, what was the best design that we are considering between two different design approaches to a new application. And it was a pain because we had to acquire hardware, provision it, and then we had to make sure we had a plan in place that after we did our experiment that it would go to a good use. Whereas with the cloud, that's just one of many examples where you can just spin it up for the 2 weeks you need it and then turn it off and you're done. So things like flexibility, experimentation, and focusing on what it is that makes you effective is a really big win, as opposed to just those nickels and dimes to run a server.
Yeah.
Now, one thing too that is a big surprise for a lot of folks who deploy to the cloud, if they haven't studied and analyzed in advance, is high availability and disaster recovery. It is an expensive proposition and often a lot more expensive than what you're used to on premises. And just broadly speaking, how would Pete, how would you define high availability versus disaster recovery?
Well, it's funny, real quick, back in the days when I was at IBM, I used to be responsible for our data and including our disaster recovery, and that was dumping things to tape. I know I'm old, and putting them down about 20 stories below ground. God forbid there was a fire or an explosion, right? That's disaster recovery, right? Or there's a power outage or something that's causing some kind of unnatural or disaster. High availability says, I especially like with financial and healthcare, where I need to make sure something's available at all times, and I need redundancy built in real time. Very different than disaster recovery.
Yeah, we onboarded a customer last month, as recently as last month, that said, I don't need to do backups. I have high availability set up. And what I tell new admins is that what you really need to do is find the practical joker in your group and ask the question, if you were going to mess this up, how would you do it? And show your architecture, because that practical joker is the one who's going to say, okay, you're going to have somebody's going to accidentally drop or delete a table in production. And HA is going to replicate that. And if you don't have a backup, you are simply out of luck. All right, this region gets an ice storm. You're not failing over to another Azure region. Guess what? You're simply out of luck. And it really takes a lot to do the planning for this. And you need to understand all the components in order to make it work.
Right. Now, there are entire sessions that last an hour just on doing this part right. So we can only give you a flavor of what you need to plan around. Yeah, or even a day, exactly. But there's massive amount of flexibility here. You might have low needs in terms of how quickly you need to recover. You might have very high speed needs to get things up or keep them up right away. Just like in an airplane, we have redundancy. We have two pilots. We have multiple engines, so that if one or more fail, there's one to pick up immediately. Whereas in other cases, we don't have to have that kind of availability. So just keep in mind, if you use the very best in class, which is a multi-availability zone, high availability plan, that will cost the same as double your servers, or even more, maybe 2.5 times as much.
Yeah, and
go on.
Well, one of the other points that I bring to technical groups is that the HA and DR solutions are not technical decisions; they're business decisions. What you need to do is ask management, how long can you afford to be down? How long can you wait for me to bring things back up in case of an absolute disaster? I've had customers that say, if I lose 2 transactions, it's devastating. Take a look at stop trades. If you miss a stop trade, you may cost somebody millions or tens of millions of dollars. At the opposite end, I had somebody say, if I lose a day's worth of data, we can reproduce it. That happened once, and I've never had it happen since. But it's a business decision before you start spending the money on HA and DR and making those decisions.